is the 2030.
On our main stage today, we're very happy to welcome Her Highness Fahda Bandar AlSaud, the co-founder of Traveling Panther and Panther Holdings. Fahda has a very interesting background in the tourism sector, and we're really excited to talk to her a little bit more about the journey of establishing the Traveling Panther, about travel and adventure, and her entrepreneurial pursuits within the kingdom. So, as we all know, a key pillar of the vision has been the government's economic diversification plan to establish Saudi as a major global tourism destination. So welcome, Fahda. We're really excited to talk to you a little bit about that today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here to talk about Saudi and Saudi tourism.
So given your background as the founder of the Traveling Panther, what do you think is driving travel and tourism today? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and kind of what you think is happening within that field?
Okay, that's a good question. So let's break it down a little bit. Saudi tourism is the driving force. Just being able to come into this country that has not been really accessible for so many years, and being able to see it with its diverse natures, cultures, its colors, and most importantly, people. I think that's the driving force, and it's the pillar for the vision, I believe. We've seen such development, such progress when it comes to Saudi tourism and Saudi cultural development as a whole, from tourism, from sports, from development projects. So it's just been a complete overhaul and boost for the country. But specifically for Saudi tourism, the driving force, I believe, I think it's the accessibility. Like, we were not able to access so many locations, so many things domestically, not just internationally. Like, for myself, there's so much I had not seen and done in my country that I'm able to do now, even for the mere fact that I can drive to all of these places and see them and do them myself and don't have to go through so many hoops. It just changes the whole perspective for me. But as for my journey, that's something else. Like, we started with the Traveling Panther in 2015. It wasn't targeted to domestic. We weren't even working in Saudi Arabia. It started from Cuba. We were in Cuba, me and some friends, and I've always been into travel photography. And at that point, it was 2015, I was going through a rough time. My late mother was getting treated in the US. And I kind of took a little break and went to Cuba. And for me to just immerse myself in a different culture and behind my lens, that's the thing that kind of drove my photography. But then my friends were like, you should showcase it. Like, this is something for people to see. And I wasn't really interested. I was just doing it for me. It was like a little bit of a therapy. But then obviously they took my USB and they uploaded it and opened up an account called the Traveling Panther on Instagram, just showing off these photos of our trip to Cuba. And people started engaging with it. I had no idea it was on for 2 days. I had no idea. And I didn't even choose the name. And another thing about the name is my name translates to panther, female panther. That's what Fahda means. So obviously, if I had the choice, I don't think I would have chosen that name. So it's not a vanity play. And it just kind of snowballed, and people started asking about our trips, and we started consulting them what to do. And the way we designed that trip is we kind of took all the international companies out of the loop and went straight into the local players on ground and removed a lot of that overcost, but still had an amazing, not luxury, but a really, really, really like high-end travel experience, but without having that, price tag, that crazy price tag on. So we thought we had something there. And my co-founder, Manayar Sharif, was like, listen, people are engaging. This could be a business. How about we try to subsidize our travel and do something with this? Like, that's a great idea. If you can make a business out of it, let's go. So we started using our trips, what we wanted to do, as the catalyst to how we showcase. And from a travel photography blog, started becoming a bespoke consultancy, travel consultancy. From that, it just kind of snowballed into a travel DMC company and a consultancy. But now that we work in Saudi, the whole thing kind of changed from just showcasing or consulting you where to do, where to go and be your kind of advocate in the travel world, to working in the tourism development field. And that has been such an honor and such a joy to be a part of. And I don't think I would have had that opportunity anywhere else in the world, to be a part of like the start of a tourism industry. So that's when everything changed in late 2018. We literally set up shop in Saudi 2 months before they announced the visa, the tourism visa. So we were there. Like it feels very serendipitous. So, and then honestly, the rest is history, or as much as you want to ask, we're willing to say.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think what's really cool about your journey is that the beginning of it, in the beginning of this sort of accidental business in a way, is a passion. And then it's also storytelling. And those are two things that are very key elements, I think, of traveling for anyone around the world. And I'm kind of curious if you could talk about, before we get into, we want to talk about a bunch of different subjects with you that are related to tourism in Saudi Arabia. Many things are related to tourism. But can you discuss a little bit about what the Traveling Panther does, the services you provide, how you're working with the Ministry of Tourism and others in Saudi Arabia to really build out this ecosystem from the ground up, from the ground out?
Happy to do so. Well, the Traveling Panther does DMCing, which is like where we can organize, set up everything, but it's mostly driven to bespoke tourism. And then we do guest management as well. And we do travel consultancy, so helping develop things when it comes to a B2G kind of relationship or a B2B. So if a company's trying to come into Saudi and work with developing experiences and designing them, that's something we do. We can take you, basically handle from the moment you think about Saudi to the moment you leave Saudi, like a handheld bespoke experience, which is our guest management. We've worked a lot with developing destinations like Al-Ula. We work with the Royal Commission of Al-Ula. That's one of our biggest partners and clients, who honestly took a chance on an emerging company and gave us an opportunity to really set up their guest management unit, help them handle a lot of high-end guests and discover that destination and kind of showcase the people, the lands, and the experiences within it, how to tie it, where to find it, like finding local areas where they would go, like generally, but it wasn't really known. But what we did was kind of integrated that culture, what people wanted to do, what people did naturally, like go out in the desert or have an outing with their families. Those were the places that you wanted to see. So we did a lot of discovery, scouting, finding those places, people, stories that can relate from a cultural tourism perspective. And that's what we're really focused on. Cultural tourism. That's what the Traveling Panther is. It's immersing yourself into that culture, whether it's how we worked before internationally and what we still do internationally, but specifically in Saudi. How do you interact with that destination? That's how we try to translate it from either a guest management, DMC operation, or a consultant.
That's really cool that you offer those services and that you are trying to anchor it in culture and make sure that people are getting somewhat of an authentic experience when they come. Especially as you were mentioning before, not only was it really difficult to come to the kingdom, but also then it would be really curated, right? Like you would see very specific things that somebody wanted you to see. And now people can just come and like drive around anybody can come and drive around, women and men alike, which is so cool. But I've spoken to you a little bit about some of the different destinations that are, up and coming, and, others are well traveled, like Al-Ula, which is, one of those places that everybody thinks of now when they want to hold a world-class event and something exciting and maybe a new destination. Oh, let's go to Al-Ula. Nobody's been there, right? But can you tell us a little bit about some of the unique adventures or things that happened while you were scouting and some of these other untapped destinations that we don't really know about?
Happy to. So, as I'm sure you know, Saudi is 13 regions. Each region has a complete different color, people, culture. So, and honestly, it feels like a continent, not a continent. It's so large, so vast. So, as you said, Al Ula is something on the global stage now. Everyone's talking about it. It's hip new thing coming up, and there's a lot of marketing behind it. But it's one of so many. The Red Sea is something I can't compare it to anything else I've ever seen. I've traveled the world. I've swum in so many places. I'm a diver. But the waters of the Red Sea, especially off of Al Wajh and the islands, are like pristine. And because it was such a close, like no one could access it, right? You couldn't really do that. There was no tourism in that sense. Only locals and fishermen would go to it. So you have corals, colors that I've never seen diving anywhere else. Islands that have like huge sea eagles nests, and the conservation efforts that they're doing there are impeccable. So for me, one of the most amazing destinations I've ever been to in Saudi is Al Wajh, because you had this old port that was the original port, like the old port that the trade route between Egypt and Saudi, before Jeddah and before Yanbu and before everyone. So that's what it's called. It's called Al Wajh, meaning the face. So it's the face of the other side of the Red Sea. So from Dhahab in Egypt, the ships would come to Wajh. So you have this old town, but it has this Hijazi style architecture, and it's so quaint and so eclectic and has these colors, and it feels it's a fisherman port, but it's also like a cultural port because of trade. But then it just kind of shut off for 100 years, and then it just started, kind of see it as it was. That's something I think is special. And now with the whole Red Sea project and a lot of big development resorts that are coming around that area, you have more access to it. There's so many beautiful little villages around the Red Sea that are so special. So that's something to see. Another one is the South. The mountains of the South are something unbelievable. Like we have a region in Saudi that is the size of Switzerland. If you can fathom that. Like it's the size of Switzerland. It has mountains and valleys as green and lush as that. Terraces of barley. Agricultural fruits all everywhere. And it's dramatic. And you have villages of slate and stone hanging on these like mountains and ridges, towers where they used to like protect, the viewpoints to make sure like when the Ottomans or the Romans would come. And you hear these stories and biblical stories and crazy stories that come out from these lands. And these, I would definitely say Tanuma Asir was a special one for me. Something out of this world. I never knew this was in Saudi. Like I knew it was there, but like you have to see it to believe it. And that's something I really I love to express to people. People have so many questions about Saudi. All you need to do is come here and all your questions will be answered. Like from a cultural perspective, from a political perspective, from a landscape, from everything. You just have to be here. You have to immerse yourself here to understand us. Understand our land, our culture, our history, and where we're going to go and where we're going. There's a movement, there's a passion here that is just electric. So I would say Al Wajh, Asir, Tanuma and Asir, and I have a big soft spot for Tabuk as well. There's a lot. I can go.
I'm so delighted to hear you mention Al Wajh because my best friend is from
really?
there. He's going to be so excited to hear this interview and hear you talking about his hometown.
He has a beautiful one. He has a beautiful hometown.
If I could follow up to that. So like so much of Saudi Arabia's global marketing for tourism is done in the same way that you sort of put it, which is just come check it out. Like, come visit us once and then you'll see. And I'm wondering, and this is a second question kind of asked in parallel, but marketing to local Saudis who are already there, but don't really have a great feel yet of all the different destinations and cool spots that you can go as a Saudi. You don't need to leave Saudi Arabia to experience mountains, water, diving, everything. So I guess my question is, how do you transition from, hey, just come explore and come see for yourself, to come back, come again, like spend more time here, visit here every year, move here? Like, how do you make that transition asking you in your wearing your hat as a consultant?
Okay.
Like, how do you get sort of that message to be out there?
Listen, we're privileged to have so much to see. So you're never going to see all, and you're never going to experience all as like on a one go. And there's a lot to take in. And we're seasonal, right? You have most of Saudi the season is winter, spring, winter, autumn. But then there's a whole area that the season is summer. And it's something no one understands. So this is a way to kind of bring people back. But as to your question of domestic tourism, our domestic tourism is the driving force for our tourism as of yet. Like, our numbers in domestic tourism are much higher than our international one, much higher than our religious one. And because we're in a development phase, every year on out, there's something new to see. Even if it's like the same city, Riyadh, I'm telling you, every time I travel and come back, there's something else happening. I can't catch up to everything that's happening. There's always something new to see. I'm in generally a complete culture shock, like constantly. I don't know what to see, what to do, where to go. Like, this is my field, and I feel like I'm missing out from so much, so much is happening, which is a great problem to have, especially in my field, So from a like just a raw tourism perspective, from a landscape perspective, you have 13 regions. Each one has its own distinct culture and shape. But even within those regions, there's like, you're talking from where we grew up, me and Hannah, in the Eastern Province, it's huge. Going up to the north in Jubail is a complete different experience than going to the south and to Hassan. It's a complete, like, you cannot bunch everything in one region, let alone everything in one kind of experience for one country. There's many things to see and many things to come back to. And if you've seen one thing, every year is going to be a different thing. So we're in a good place to entice people to come back, whether from the cities or from different countries. We have personally clients who have been coming here from all over the world: China, Russia, US, Germany, Italy. Domestically, every year, we have several clients that go every year to Al-Ula, every single year, because there's something, because the seasons, Saudi seasons, and the amount of investment we're putting, activations and experiences and new cultural development projects and art and music and sports, and also like hotels and infrastructure we're building. So you're not going to see the same place ever. No matter, every year you're going to see a different place. So I'm not worried about that.
No, I mean, I've seen just a teeny bit, right? Because again, like, I'm outside of the kingdom most of the year. And so when I do come, it's usually just to see family and I just go home, and there isn't loads that's, happening at the moment in the Eastern Province. But even there, everything is quite different every time I come back. And whenever I come to Riyadh, which is every time I visit the kingdom as well, it's, I don't even like, it's, as you mentioned, completely unrecognizable. There's something different and something new, and it's really exciting. But I mean, I have a question about that, which I think we get questions about this a lot from our audience on how accessible it is to everybody. Like, is it super luxurious, or can you kind of do it on a shoestring? Like, how much variation is there in the types of experiences that are currently on offer, and what's also in the pipeline?
Okay. Well, great question, honestly, because that's something that also a lot of people ask us. And there is a variation. You have at this moment, a lot of development is targeted on luxury and sustainable tourism. So you hear about all these big projects like the Red Sea projects and all the resorts that are happening from the Ritz, Six Senses, St. Regis to Neom, to the Diriyah project, to a lot of these big giga projects that are have a lot of luxury and will be a higher price point. But that's not all of Saudi. People have to understand we've always had tourism, but it was targeted to a religious tourism. So there is accessibility to every kind of tourist, We're working on to bettering our offerings when it comes to marketing and making things accessible where I think information might not be as accessible as we want, but the country is like the what we offer is. So you can come to Saudi and have a budget, be on a budget and see so many beautiful things and have access to so many beautiful places. And there are options with accommodations, with transportation and everything that is affordable. And then you have also the expensive kind of offerings as well. I think we're also building a really big, middle ground offering, which will take a little bit more time, but it's doable. It's really doable. You can come here and spend what you would spend in London or New York in the cities and because shopping, food, F&B is amazing, guys. We're top of our game. And then you can also just go camping, take a tent and camp and be in a budget and be in the most pristine, beautiful places, but have the best amenities, the best food, the best guides. So you have group trips that are affordable. You have, high-end trips to the Red Sea where you're in a resort and all your needs are met. And there's so many great companies here. And I think that's the thing that you need to just contact any of the tourism companies and the offerings vary. The offerings vary from budget to luxury. So there's something for everyone. There's something for everyone.
So I just want to follow up on that. So you mentioned the guides, right? And the tourism companies, but specifically some of the local guides. So I had an experience in Al Ula where we were on a tour and we met one of the guides, or he was actually a ranger, and just chatted to him. And he offered to take us around later when his shift was over and show us a couple of kind of local things. And I was with quite a big group of people. And there was, he was saying it was because of الخالة اللي معاكم. So the older woman, he really liked her. She was really kind to him. And he was like, I really want to show her around my town. And he was incredible. He really was this. And this is something I feel like people are terrified of in most countries, is talking to a local and then going with them after a tour and seeing their side of the city. And there was zero fear. Actually, what we were afraid of is that we'd want to tip him or pay him for his time and not be able to do that because it was all, him being very generous and wanting to show his local side of Al Ula to us. And so it's just this safety dynamic is something that I don't think we talk about enough, and just how hospitable and kind and friendly everybody is and how easy it is to make friends with locals. Obviously, I know this person, the next time I'm in Al Ula, I'm going to drop him a line. It was this really, sweet young guy that is excited about the tourism industry. So what do you think? I'd love to hear a little bit more about the guides, people that are professionally trained to do this, but then also how locals are interacting with
You
tourists.
tapped into my favorite subject right now. I think the best ambassadors to Saudi it's people. Yes, you might have a tour guide, you might have everything kind of, buttoned up, but finding that corner person who just takes you around and shows you a neighborhood that you own, that's what's special about Saudi. Someone inviting you to their house, someone telling you a story about their families, someone just tapping on the shoulder. I'm like, hey, are you lost? Do you need help? We take pride in showcasing our culture and country. We really do. And it is a sense of like honor and pride. Like, and you can see it. And I'm sure you saw it with the Rangers. Like, they want to do more. They want to show more. It's our chance to showcase, right? But it's also our chance to host. And that's something innate in our culture. Hosting is a bedrock of who we are as a Saudi people. When you enter our country, you're our guest. Simple as that. And I would encourage people to interact with locals. I would encourage people to talk and not be too afraid to just ask, what's the worst that could happen? Someone say, no, thank you. We're very polite people. And honestly, it's a bit of, it's a sense of shame to say no to someone. We're very prideful. Like, we want to make sure you leave with the best impression. You see the best of us. You see who we are and not what you think we are. And when it comes to our hospitality, sometimes it's a little bit of aggressive, our hospitality, but it comes from a really place of kindness. So just lean in to the culture. Really, that's when the special moments happen. And when you ask me about like special moments, special places, special moments where I've been, my favorite moments are meeting people. Like, my favorite moments is meeting this old lady in a mountainside in Azir, that meeting the fisherman who took us to that island that I told you about in Al-Wajh. And then when we were going, finding a music band on a fisherman boat across from us who came and played a whole set, boat to boat. Where did they come from? I don't know. Like stuff like that, going into the mountains of Tabuk and being invited to a coffee by Bedouin. I adored that, When people think it's such a like rigid or the culture is so hard to understand, it isn't. It just, we're hospitable, kind people, and we just need you to see us as such so you can know our hospitality and our kindness and are wanting you to see our land. Because there's so much false narratives that we have to deal with all our lives. And it's a way for us to introduce you to the true Saudi. So yes, meet those guides, talk to those people, the person in the coffee shop who says, hey, let me show you this place, or, go with that. Honestly, it's a very safe country.
Let me just add to that, as the white guy Khawaja in this chat, I've been going to Saudi Arabia for 15 years, and that has been my direct experience every time. And just, I wanted to comment on that because it's not some new thing. It's not a new effort of the vision to be, hey, we need tourism, so let's try to be nice to these people coming in that are seeing it for the first time. It is, as you said, innate. It's like built into you guys, and just wanted to say thank you because it's been really nice over the years to get that every single time. It's one of the biggest disconnects, I think, about how people view Saudi Arabia from the outside and how it really is. The warmth of Saudi people is unmatched, in my opinion. So
yeah, I'm in awe of my countrymen. I'm in awe. They really they make me so proud. And you kind of want to do more because of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like you said, you get invited to people's homes. It's very rude to say no. And so like my family is originally from Al-Hassa, but I grew up in Dammam, and we rarely go to Al-Hassa and see some of the family members that still live there, but cousins. And I went for a funeral once, and we literally just drove there to say, pay our condolences, and then we were driving back the same day. And we got into so much trouble because we were invited by like 6 different people, and they were all really angry with us. For not staying. So I'm glad that you got that experience too, Lucian. And I think that that's important, that like it's not just about the family members, but it's open arms to everybody that's there and welcome. So I'm glad you had that experience. And I also am in awe, and as Fahda said, it can be aggressive, but it comes from a really good place. I want to pivot. Right, exactly. I want to pivot a little bit because you mentioned a little bit about what's happening with sports and entertainment and the seasons and everything that's happening in the different in the different destinations. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of your role in some of these major events and kind of how that's been for you?
Well, okay. So when it comes to the seasons and all the directive for entertainment, sports, there's so much investment, there's so much put into it. And the thing that I love about it, it's mostly like, it's not like we're targeting, we're doing this to target the international community. Our focus initially are the domestic, are domestically. So, but obviously it's gonna entice and be something that the international community would like to see. And that's something also that we do consider and we look for, but we always want to make sure the Saudis are the ones entertained and being able to get into the sports and the music and everything, so we can showcase it to others when they come. As for my role, as TTP has done several things with in several instances. We worked with the first Middle East Festival in 2019, where we handled a lot of we handled everything outside of the festival from a cultural experience. So all of their guests and their artists, for their interaction to a cultural experience, from a desert experience to a farm experience to the historical entities and interactions with people. That's again what we're known for, cultural tourism. So we, 300 VIP guests that we took for 3 days and kind of immersed them into Saudi culture outside of the festival. Doing the same thing with the guest management for launch of the Dir'iyah Gate Development Authority, taking all the journalists and VIPs to around Riyadh and immersing them in their kind of cultural scene. Also, and then from those two, we really got tapped into the Royal Commission, who asked us to come in and work with them and develop a guest management unit and do, build experiences and visitor journey experiences, and making sure to showcase this amazing these amazing programs that they were doing, and this great initiative. So we've worked with that with a couple of years, where we kind of showcase what from a historical and heritage and cultural aspect, and then we got into the arts and culture, where Desert X and artists residencies and developing that kind of thing. And because we've been in, and we worked with, and another thing, we've handled Cruise Saudi, shore excursions, and also showcasing kind of the cultural tourism aspect there. We've had we've worked with several entities, and we helped develop from a current status assessment to developing a destination to be better, to have a better visitor experience, to handling existing experiences and destinations, and just kind of showcasing, to designing full-blown ground-up entertainment experiences and venues and cultural immersion experiences. So we've done a lot when it comes to different things, and we're a company that pivots. We are all about leaning into opportunities. That's how we started, and I think that's gonna be our, that's our driving force. Like, to the point where the Traveling Panther was so, because of what we do, and I personally think we do the best when it comes to like guest management and experience designing. That became the core business for TTP. But we've realized within the tourism cultural infrastructure, there was a lot of gaps. This is why we kind of built other companies that kind of filled our gaps. And one of the other companies we have under the Panther Holding umbrella, it's called Butte, which what we do is we go into these not historical, but heritage areas, so the old towns. And we engage locals who have buildings that are not the structure is kind of a little bit demolished, not untaken care of, and they're not a part of the heritage, aspect, and they're not in a modern field. So they're in that gap. What I believe is a timeline that really, really, really showcases Saudi, which is from the 50s to the 80s. And that's architecturally something very sound and like the brutalistic kind of Art Deco movement and architecture that we grew up in. This is something very innately Saudi. So we go there, we rent out a long-term lease from an owner, and we develop that building and flip it to short-term rentals. And to come into something you mentioned before, it's and offer a mid-range market stay for people, because we found a gap in the market, and now we have these two beautiful buildings in the old town in Al-Bala, Dar Haifa and Dar Al-Anud, that showcase beaut projects. And we're looking to go into different cultural destinations like Diriyah, like Al-Hassa, like Jeddah, Old Town, and do more of these. We want you to even live and have the cultural immersion where you're staying, instead of staying in a resort or which I would recommend as well. But like we're building options when it comes to accommodations, and that's where Butte came to be. And we just continue to try to fill the gaps when it comes to the tourism infrastructure and how we can help. So there's a lot.
No, I love that, because you're really highlighting how your company is impacting the tourism industry as much as the tourism industry is opening up. And I love that there's a space for innovation and that you're stepping into that. And that's the most exciting part, is that it is obviously, when people look at it from the outside, think about the Ministry of Tourism and how it's like driven from the government. But I think the idea that there is a lot of private sector engagement and innovation and entrepreneurial engagement, that's something we really need to talk about more. And so that's going to lead me to my last question, which hopefully will help us kind of wrap up a little bit, is as an entrepreneur and a woman in the kingdom, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in kind of launching and growing? And, what has been the most kind of maybe eye-opening or rewarding and kind of like something that's changed for you that's really kind of felt good about the changes that are happening?
Well, yeah, I was privileged enough to grow up in a city, in a place, and have a lot of influenced by a lot of strong women who were entrepreneurs and leaders. So from that perspective, I never felt like there was a lot of barriers. But coming into the workforce and coming into a whole other city and a whole other industry that was not in existence, like to start, there was a bit of, it was a slow start. It was a bit of a tough start coming in and being able to sit on those tables, being a part of the conversation and trying to work with the then existing structure. But the more that structure changes within the 2030 vision, the more opportunity, the more flexibility, the more opportunity that we found. As a woman, at this point, I don't see it hinders me whatsoever. It actually empowers me. It really does. They wanna hear our voices. They wanna see us. We are in the forefront and we have representation, and that is something I am proud and I'm I want to see more out. And we're coming up to, year in, year out, you see more and more and more in the workforce, and you see the numbers actually showcase the strength of the female workforce coming into these new industries, and the numbers are really in our favor. So that kind of gives incentives to more people coming in and more companies integrating that into their workforce. The thing that I find difficult, it's not a gender thing at all. What I think is difficult is, and maybe not difficult, but challenging. It's trying to introduce a new industry and a new cultural understanding to something that a culture that was slowly developing to jump leaps, from a closed place to a destination that was not accessible to, hey, come and see it and come engage with it. So it's the educational aspect from a ground level that I find it's slower than the development, It'll take time for what is happening on ground and what is happening from a top level to kind of merge. And for me as an entrepreneur, I'm working on ground and and I feel it's my duty to showcase what's actually happening on ground so we can develop it properly to meet the key points that they're trying to land from a governance perspective. We're working towards building this industry. We're working towards building this engagement and having more work opportunities. But the transition from the old guard to the new world, it'll take time. And that's from a work perspective, from an entrepreneur and from someone who needs to train these people and work with them and make them understand this is, how to interact with new people. And this is a service, industry. This is not, you're not sitting behind a computer, or you're not just pressing it. It's an educational issue that I have with, difficulty with, but it's getting better year by year. So
Princess Fahda Bandar AlSaud, co-founder of the Traveling Panther, accidental Instagram photography leader and consultant, right at the crest of the wave of the booming tourism industry in Saudi Arabia, where the sector is set to be the fastest growing in the Middle East over the next decade. Princess Fahda, thank you so much. This was terrific.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your invitation. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the 2030.